Hey, Dylan here, and I decided to do a video about why I think a Sword Art Online progressive anime would is a good idea. Now, if you don't know what Sword Art Online a lot of people know what Sword Art Online is, but if you don't know what Sword Art Online progressive is, it is a light novel series that the original author Riki Kawahara decided to make about that goes back to that first floor of Aincrad. And it's basically like as the name suggests, it progresses through Aincrad only. Hence the name progressive. And there are a few reasons why I think this could be a good idea. Because one, it could do a retry of that first arc. Because he says in this first one here, in what he called, what's not in other books is called like author's note, but for him it's called afterword, where it has his thoughts and such. Well, he like the afterward in that is really long compared to any of the others, he talks about why he did this first off, and about kind of the story about why the first arc was so short, and why there are things that are like cut out or that weren't put in there. And the reason, and I'm explaining the reason right now, is that it's because it originally was put in a contest. He put the story in a contest about like a novel contest about the premise of being trapped in a game and they have to beat it to leave. But they didn't have time to make it like a full-fledged series. It had to be in that one volume. So imagine trying to do that when in the story there's 100 floors. So that's why that this first arc is so short. And so he had the idea to make progressive. And as you see, this book's like the biggest SAO book there is, because this one is about, it goes back kind of a bit before it's hard to explain, but it's obviously after what happens with Akihiko showing up. It happens after that. A little bit after that. And actually, some of the point of views is actually not from Kirito, but sometimes it's also from Asuna's point of view as well. So it's like a back and forth between them, because it's kind of their journey going through Aincrad from the very beginning, which, yes, causes some conflict with some of the canon story in the original, but this is what I believe is what he intended it to actually be, a continuous story of going through Aincrad. That's what I feel like progressive is. That's why I think it would be like a retry of that first arc. Oh, and a big thing about it is that you get more character development for Kirito, which of course didn't happen very much in SAO because it skipped like a bunch, like big old time skip in it. And so far at least translated, there are 6 volumes. I'm right now reading, what is it? No, there are 5 that are translated. 6th one coming a little bit later. No, number 4. But But the interesting thing about this is that you see some of these minor characters that were shown in the anime, and they were kind of like written off. But in this, they have more development and they have more meaning to the story, or at least to the beginning of the Aincrad arc. Now, I want to say about why this one is so thick is because he goes through 2 floors in this volume. At first, he says he's going to do 2 floors per novel, but then he changed his mind in the second one because there was a character development in it that he wanted to like stretch out a bit. Ended up being only one. Now it's only going to be like 1 floor per novel. And honestly, people can say what they want about that being like, oh, he's just capitalizing and so he can make more novels, make more money. And do you realize how hard it would be to, like, look at this, how thick this is. And this is just 2 of them. And the others are like about literally half that size, if not like 2/3 of it, to be 1 floor. Not because there's like where he does stuff with like side quests, the main quest, and the one I'm currently in, he kind of left out some of the, like, he didn't do much for the boss fights for the past 2 volumes, so he is making this one about the fifth floor being like a milestone. So it's mainly more about that than it is about some of the other stuff. I mean, other stuff does happen, but like the big part of this 4th novel is about the 5th floor boss and how big it is, how of a milestone it is, and how long this fight would actually be. Anyway, I'm getting off track. Well, like I said, there are characters in there that go back to the minor characters I was talking about. There are minor characters that showed up in the 2nd episode. I'm pretty sure, the 2nd episode when they were fighting the first boss. And one character though that didn't even that didn't show up that now shows up in this. One of them is Kibao, who, he hates like beta testers, beaters, and all that. Well, you see you see actual character development for him, and the fact that, like in the anime and the first and the original light novel, it was him that like yelled out at Kirito, saying like, "Why did you let Diavolo die?" But in Progressive, it's a different character who actually says that. And that character becomes important in this Progressive series, who is called Lind, who is trying to, after Diavolo dies, get to the 2nd floor. He starts creating his own group. And he tries to impersonate a copy, kind of be like Diavolo, because he looked up to Diavolo. He even dyed his hair blue to match Diavolo. And so it was Kibao and Lind who have these 2 separate groups who are always butting heads together. And that would be interesting for an anime, because for a spin-off anime, OVA series, whatever. However it could be done. Where it's like these 2 groups that you never heard of, but they're just all of a sudden like bashing. I'm losing track of what I'm trying to say. Well, actually, that's all I needed to say about Lind and Kibao. That mainly that the character is more prominent in this, and they're not just like a one-off thing that happens just on the 1st floor, because these characters have been in each one, because they're like the front running groups that are getting through each of the boss fights, helping get through each of the boss fights. in this beginning stages of the game. And you kind of see that there is, and a big part is about these stages. These two groups, yes, they become, and then they eventually become guilds. I think on the fourth floor, third or fourth floor, they become guilds. Official guilds, I should say. Another thing about this is that there's a potential chance that it's from, and this is me more like foreshadowing of what's happening in them right now, is that you potentially could be seeing the startings of Laughing Coffin, that PK guild, that guild of player killers and all that. Because there is this character, Mort, who appears in the second volume. Yeah, in the second volume, he appears. Then in this current one I'm reading, you see a bit more of it, and you find out that there is more of them, like coming together and trying to. No, actually, no, I'm not gonna say anything about that, but I'll just say that it's a potential that you could be seeing the beginnings of Laughing Coffin in this. Because Laughing Coffin just like came out of nowhere in the story. Oh. There's a couple of characters that, one, never appeared, and two, one of them never appeared, and one of them kind of got like one scene of screen time, and that was it. That's all that you saw of her. Unless you play the game, then you know a lot more about her. But then this is Argo. Her. The information dealer, Argo the Rat. And no, that's not like an insult. That's her actual like nickname and throughout the thing, because of the whiskers she has on her. And you actually get explanation for those whiskers in the first volume. And like the second half of the first volume. And Argo is honestly one of my favorite characters that I've seen in this whole series, because of how she acts, and yes, there's the Argo in the anime. There's the Argo that is seen, that probably more people have seen in the games. Then there's the Argo that's in the progressive novels. Not all of them are the same. Well, they're all the same character, but she kind of deserves a bit more screen time, because she is an important character that helped them get through Aincrad. Especially in these beginning cases, because she's the one that's like going through everything, getting all the information about all the bosses, and even the new information that they change in like the beta tests of bosses, which is a very common theme throughout all the bosses that I've read through. And honestly, she's just one of my favorite characters because of how she acts toward like Kirito and Asuna and basically everyone. I don't know, she's just one of my favorites. Anyway, the other character is a mysterious NPC named Kismil that people did see in Hollow Realization, because she just appeared. And people who have not read this have probably questioned about who the hell is this, like, because she just randomly appears for a quest in Hollow Realization. But I'm glad I read these before I even got to that part. Otherwise, I wouldn't know who it was. Now, let me explain a little bit about what she is. There's like something mysterious about Kismet because she is a dark elf NPC that is supposedly supposed to die on a like campaign quest that goes throughout up to like I think like the ninth floor, to nine or 10th floor, and it starts on the 3rd floor. And what's different is that she didn't die this time. Apparently, they were powerful enough because it had her a dark elf versus a forest elf, and they were clashing, and you had decided which one you wanted to protect. So you decided, and so Kirtan obviously decided to go for Kismet. And somehow they managed to defeat the forest elf without her having to use her last minute thing whenever their HP like goes down to like half-ish, I think. And then she does like some attack that sacrifices herself. That was like part of the beta. And then but they were able to defeat the forest elf before that even happened. So Kismet is still alive for some reason, and Kirito keeps wondering why. Well, was wondering why at that point, and she's just slowly getting like these AI tendencies. She's more getting closer to like AI than NPC, because she still has sort of a set of reactions to things, but she's processing them and learning them like an AI. So that's why, but she's still considered an NPC in the light novel. And that's why it would be really interesting to see what happens with her. And obviously nothing has been found out yet about it, just that they've been getting along together. And oh yeah, there is a bath scene that Asuna goes to take a bath. She comes out. He's saying, "Okay, Kirito, it's all yours." He goes in there. Kismet just goes right straight in. She has like no shame about it at all. And of course, Kirito being real awkward about it, like it's a funny scene, but it was awkward because there was a page of it that was illustrated in there in the book. I was like, okay, gotta make sure I get read past this real fast so no one notices. Okay. Anyway, I think that's most of the points. I think I jumped around on my list there, and yeah, I jumped around the list. I talked about how Riki Kawahara intended the series to be. He wanted it to be a full length, well, not 100 volumes, but it's gonna end up being like 99 maybe, but he intended to be a progressive kind of series for Aincrad. And what I think for this, it would be good for either an anime spin-off, because some of the things in there don't align with what is considered canon, even though it is technically better than how the first arc was, and even the first arc of the episode of the anime. Even someone like me who could be considered an SAO fanboy, whatever, does see the flaws in like the first season and such. But this would be like a do-over for the entire series, at least that first arc, because there's actual character development for a lot of characters. There's these new characters. There's these minor characters that barely got any screen time, that are there more often and have a more prominent role in the story. Oh yeah, like I said, it can be either an anime spin-off or an OVA series even. And that's all I have that's about all that I have about it that I can think of. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, why not consider subscribing for some more content, anime content, otaku content, all kinds of stuff. And I will see you in my next, possibly in my next video. Bye.